Hello, my beautiful people, and welcome back. So, I come to you with the next part of setting boundaries, and this one is going to look a little different because I'm talking about parents and children. There's the parent and child dynamic. Setting boundaries, and this could deeply affect our emotional health, our nervous system balance, and even our relationship with food and bodies and our bodies. So, when we're setting boundaries, we're going to talk about the children from birth to adulthood who interact with their parents, okay, throughout that time. And what these boundaries are not, they are not rejection, they are not coldness, they are not distance. Distancing yourself from your child, if I say that right, putting distance between you and your child. That's not what this is. Okay, it's about creating clarity, safety, and love with structure. Okay, so let's talk about the first part of a parent and children dynamic, where the child is born, and usually from birth to 3 years of age, when they're toddlers, this looks a little different. And what this may look like is scheduling, okay? Being there for your child when they need you, they're crying or whatever, needing consoling or just needing some love and attention. At the same time, one of the main important boundaries I feel like we should set is scheduling, because it's hard, and I'm speaking from experience, of course, because I am a mom. I have children and I have grandchildren. And, you have to be able to be gentle but firm, teaching um, from the beginning of birth up until 1 years of age. Usually it's more like setting a schedule, okay? Not so much behavioral. Now, from one all the way up to about 3 or 4, that's when you start getting into um, physical boundaries. Because at that age, that's why they call them the terrible twos. They like to hit, they like to do things. For example, um, you can tell them, like when they hit you, hey, that hurts. Don't do that. Now, I can give you a good, perfect example with my youngest grandchild, Malia. Okay, Malia, it will be 3. And when she was 1, a little over 1, I was holding her. And while I was holding her, she was looking shy at first. And then as I spoke to her and I was talking softly to her and, hi, Nana's baby, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm just trying to set the tone a little bit. She went and drew back and slapped me in my face. So I was like, oh, no, you can't hit Nana. So mom and dad thought it was funny. They laughed. Oh, she does that all the time. Ha, 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 she does it. And then, her mom was like, because it's my son's daughter and his partner. So the mom was like, oh, she does it to my mom all the time. I said, oh, well, she can't do that to me. So I'm using this as an example of, you know, at this point, you're setting boundaries between 1 and 3 physically. And unfortunately, this some people may not like what I'm going to say, but this holds true. Sometimes you have to give them a taste of their own medicine. So as I'm holding her, she went to hit me again, and I grabbed her hand. I said, "No, Mimi, you don't hit. That's a no-no." Okay, I done gave her strike number 2. So strike number 3 came. She raised up, and she went to hit me again. So then I popped her very gently. I didn't hit her hard. I popped her. I said, "No, don't hit," because I'm thinking, okay, if I tap her back, just to give her a little love tap, she'll get the picture. Mom and dad still thought it was funny. So then she went again. I said, you know what? I'm not going to put you down yet, but you're going to stop hitting me. I'll put you down. And it's not that she wanted to get down. She was, just being coy. Oh, I'm good. I'm going to hit you. You know how it is. They're holding you, and then out of nowhere, here goes this little hand. But that hurts. It really does. Their little hits sting. So I think a couple more times happened, and each time that she tried to hit me, my slaps got harder. And where was I slapping her? On her hand, because that's what was hitting me. And After I hit her the last time, she got quiet and she drew back and she was like, she had her hand like this, ooh, and I put her down and she started crying. Mom was not happy, I could tell. But dad was laughing still because he's like, I knew that was going to happen. He knew me because he's my son. But mom did not know. She thought I was going to be like her mother and let my granddaughter continue to hit me. So I say all that to say you have to set boundaries with children. When you think it's cute that they hit, then that's a problem because now you're creating a little monster that eventually, as they get older, can get worse. So, yes, we need to set boundaries at that age as well. So, um, with that said, we're going to go on to the next um, age bracket of from like age 4 to 10, right before they get to their preteens. You still need to set boundaries. Like, and this would look more like by this time, I hope that they're not putting their hands on other people and other children. And again, I want to let me just state this real quick before I go to the age 4 to 10 group. When you're dealing with age 1 through 3, possibly 4, and they're doing this hitting thing, you have to remember if they go to school, when they go to school, and they start bullying and hitting on other people's children, everybody's not going to take too kind to that, no matter they're a child or not. That means that as a parent and as parents, you need to teach your children respect and boundaries for others as well as yourself because it starts at home. It really does. Okay. So now let's go back to age 4 through 10. Age 4 through 10, this is where you're setting clear boundaries when it comes to chores or age appropriate responsibilities. In other words, a child that's old enough to take out the garbage. Now, obviously, a 4 5 year old is not big enough to take out garbage yet, but they can go with you, they can walk with you to go take out the garbage, but that's not something that you want to set boundaries about. Here, I'm talking about putting your toys away, having quiet time, or time that you're supposed to turn the TV off and time that you're supposed to do your homework and, those type of things. That's that kind of boundaries, and I understand that sometimes at this point they're going to be angry because it's like, why are you making me do this? You've been doing this. Like if it's cleaning up their room or, making sure they make their bed, like you have to set clear boundaries. Now, again, boundaries look different depending on what the situation is and what the dynamics is. Um, and it's okay to still have behavioral limits and not necessarily be their friend. You're not trying to be their friend, even though we are our children's friend. We're their really own friend. Like they learn to have friendships outside of the relationship of a parent, but we're not their friends. Okay, so you definitely have to set those boundaries and you know not set them up for failure, so to speak. And again, I'm speaking from experience because I could tell you some of the things that I failed at as being a parent. I feel like I failed. Not that it wasn't rectified, but it creates a challenge. Okay. And I'm gonna tell you where I feel like I went wrong later. But here we're gonna move forward with the preteens and teens, and this here is looks different as well. It looks like, okay, not locking doors, but if my door is closed, you knock on it and wait for someone to say come in. That's on both ends. Okay. Some parents may not agree. I didn't always agree, and I was raised like, okay, this is my house, but you don't pay no bills here, type of thing. But if you want a healthy relationship, you set by example. If my door is closed, you knock on my door and you wait for me to tell you to come in. Um, and same thing. If their door is closed, you knock on the door. Now, I'm not saying wait for them to say come in all the time because sometimes they might be doing something they're supposed to be doing. Your children. But either way, at this point, for preteens and teens, you have to set clear expectations around technology, their social life. Be consistent in your consequences with them because if you're not and you let up, they're not going to take you seriously. So you have to set clear boundaries to let them know that you mean business. you know. But at the same time, you can allow them to think for themselves, let them think independently, and not make them feel like they have to believe everything you say, as far as like creating their own personality. In other words, it's what I'm talking about, not nothing else. I'm not talking about believe everything you say when it comes to safety and how the world operates and all that. It's just let them think differently if that's okay, than what you think. And I want to think of a good example of what I mean by that. Um, when I say think differently, um, I can't think of a good example, but like, you know, I want to say even when it comes to, and this could be touchy too for anybody, but just like with religion, we teach them religion or being spiritual or whatever it is that what we teach our children. Not everybody teaches the same thing, so that's why I'm saying it's like this. But at the end of the day, if they don't want to believe in the denomination that you're believing in, like say I'm a Christian, maybe my child don't want to be a Christian, she might want to be a Muslim, or he wants to be a Muslim. That's fine, but I want them to learn how to research and get the information they need in order to not follow the same belief system that I have. In other words, that's what I mean when I say let your children think differently than you. And it's okay that they think differently than you, because then that opens up a conversation that can be had, a mature conversation that you can have with your children, pre-teen and teenage, because they can think. They really can think for themselves. They can be as mature as you allow them to be, and um, open-minded as much as you allow them to be. Okay, don't keep them in a box. All right. So enough of that. Let's move on to I want to move on to, I don't know if I want to do teenage. No, I did teen and teen. So let's move on to adult children and detachment with love. This is really a tough one for me, and I'm being honest. And I had to learn because, what this looks like is it creates a problem sometimes. Like you have to be able to um, not solve all their problems as if they're still children. That's one of my things, and it's not with all my children. It's with my last two. I struggle because they're not as self sufficient, And did I create that problem? More than likely I did, because I didn't set the boundaries that I set with the first one. I have three biological children, by the way. I just want to clarify. I have an adopted daughter, and I also have my stepson from my previous marriage, who we are very still close, you know, with. We're both close with each other. So boundaries, again, what this would look like for an adult child is not solving all their financial problems over and over again, not interfering in their relationships, not demanding access to all the details of their life, because they have their lives. And even though we know some things, that's okay. Okay, releasing all control over their choices. They have to make these choices. I mean, again, that doesn't mean that you can't give them advice. You can't, tell them, but how can I explain? Like with me now, and every relationship is not like this. I'm very open with my children. We have open relationship where we're so open. I feel like they could tell me anything, and they know they could, but do they? No. So, um, I had to learn to step back, and I want to use my youngest child as an example. That's the one who's Malia's dad. Um, we have to set boundaries, because the problem that I ran into with him was he relied on me so much, and I want my kids to have the best of everything. So what I do, I provide a car for him. He had a car when he was 16. I bought this car from somebody because it was $300 and they were about to lose it. They didn't want to lose it, but they didn't want to get it fixed either. It was a Honda, and I bought it for his first car. I had 300 miles of free towing. I paid the person some $100, hundreds of dollars for the car. It was less than 500. And I said, okay, this will be his good first car. Well, I bought it for him and I gave him clear instructions that until you get your permit, you could not drive it. And then when you get your license, you gotta, be careful with it. He was 16 at the time. What did I do? I like, Mom, I just want to fix it. It went from wanting to fix it to sneaking to get the keys, and he took off with the car. Then he started trying to drive the car. And then that opened up a whole nother can of worms because he's like, well, it's my car. But the car wasn't in his name. It wasn't in his name. It was in my name. And I hadn't given it to him yet. So that's one example of setting clear boundaries and staying consistent with what you say, because it does give you peace of mind. That's a boundary. It really is a boundary. And I set that boundary, but I didn't stick to it. Okay. So that's a problem. Then there's the boundary of, okay, well, my mom has it, and me, I'm trying to help him stay on his feet, but I'm not helping him because this kid is over 25 now. And he continued to rely on me up until recently, where I had it, because I realized that, he's expected me to do these things. So I have to set boundaries. I have to set financial boundaries with him and it's working. It's working. So I could speak to experience about that. I don't interfere with his relationship I have between me and him, but I don't get, when him and the mother of his daughter was getting, they were going back and forth before she was even born. Wasn't vocal. I wasn't vocal about what I didn't like or what I did, what I did or didn't like about their relationship. I didn't particularly care for her, but do I tell him to leave her? No, that's not my problem. He has to live with her. He has to live with her problems. And that's where we set boundaries. Don't get involved. Only be there when they ask you to be there. You know, only give them advice when they ask for advice. Give them help when you feel like it is worthy to be given. Don't just give to them because they're your child. That's a failure I done. I completely failed on that part for a long time. Giving my children, trying to dig them out of a problem. How are they going to learn if you keep trying to save them, right? So, again, this conversation was about setting boundaries between a parent and children, because it's very much needed. And this, again, has to start from birth, and that changes over time as the child grows. Your boundaries are going to always look different. And if you have any comments, or if you have any questions that you would like to ask, please leave them in the comment and I will get back to you with helping you deal with that and what it should look like. Again, I'm taking my own advice. I'm giving it to you guys. I know that this was something a long time ago, but again, wishful thinking is what they call it. Okay, if I do this, they'll be all right. No, what it did was it made my son become reliant on me, so reliant on me that he thought that I was supposed to do these things for him, that he's entitled to my money, to my time, to whatever it is that he was asking me for, minus being in his business. Like, for instance, like, what they're doing because you might have done what they've done before, like when it comes to their party life or whatever, right? So again, you still have to give them their privacy. You still do not get involved with their personal life. Let them make those decisions. Let them fall on their face. Until they ask you for help and you know that they're serious and they seriously need that help, then stay out of the way. Set boundaries, because it will give you peace of mind. Seriously. I'm just starting to get peace of mind, literally. And it's funny because I have to take my own advice and I'm here to help you guys deal with that. And the only reason why I'm coming to you with this is because I have experienced it. So with that said, I'm going to go on this video, and I will be coming back to you when it comes to setting boundaries in the workplace, as well as setting boundaries in your personal relationships, like a best friend or a sibling type of dynamic. Um, I will just briefly come and kind of explain what I what I mean when it comes to boundary setting there. And if again you have questions about setting boundaries with anyone in in any relationship that you're in, whether it's with your children or with your significant other or whatever, please drop me a comment or a question in the comment section, and I'll be more than happy to help you. All right. With that said, I'm gonna go. Enjoy life. Have a blessed and productive and prosperous rest of your day. Peace out.